What if I told you there are entire countries on Earth without a single river or lake? No flowing water, no natural reservoirs, nothing. In a world where civilizations have always depended on rivers to survive, these countries have had to find completely different ways to live, grow, and thrive. From massive desalination plants to ancient underground water systems, they've turned one of the biggest natural disadvantages into a test of human innovation. In this video, we're exploring countries with no rivers or lakes and how they manage to survive without one of the most basic resources on the planet. Saudi Arabia, the desert giant. Saudi Arabia covers over 2 million square kilometers and has absolutely zero permanent rivers. The country is covered by the Arabian Desert, one of the harshest places on Earth. When it does rain, which is rare, the water evaporates quickly or gets absorbed into the sand. Saudi Arabia has dry riverbeds called wadis that briefly fill during storms, but nothing lasting. For drinking water, the country depends on underground aquifers built up over thousands of years, plus massive desalination plants along its coasts. These plants turn seawater into fresh water on an enormous scale. Saudi Arabia is actually one of the biggest producers of desalinated water in the world. The underground fossil water reserves, however, are not renewable. Once they are gone for good. Yemen, water crisis in a dry land. Yemen has no permanent rivers. It gets some seasonal rainfall in its western mountains, and dry wadis carry water briefly during rain seasons, but nothing qualifies as a permanent river. Yemen is among the most water-stressed countries on the planet. A fast-growing population, poor infrastructure, and years of conflict have pushed the water situation to a breaking point. Most people depend on underground wells, but those wells are being emptied far faster than nature can refill them. In many cities, water arrives by truck. The damage to water infrastructure from ongoing conflict has made things dramatically worse, turning what was already a geographic challenge into a full humanitarian crisis. Oman, ancient channels, modern lessons. Oman has no permanent rivers either, but it has something arguably more impressive: the Falaj system. These are ancient networks of channels, some over 1,000 years old, that carry water from underground sources and mountain areas down to farms and villages using only the force of gravity. No pumps, no electricity, just smart engineering passed down through generations. UNESCO recognized the Falaj as a World Heritage Site. Even today, these channels are actively used in many Omani villages. Oman has also built modern desalination plants and water pipelines, but the Falaj stands as proof that a society can manage without rivers if it is disciplined and inventive with the water it does have. Kuwait, oil wealth, zero fresh water. Kuwait is one of the wealthiest countries in the world and one of the driest. It has no rivers, no lakes, and receives less than 120 millimeters of rainfall per year on average. The country is flat desert with nothing to trap or hold water. Kuwait solved this with money and technology. It was among the first countries in the Middle East to build large-scale desalination plants, and today almost all drinking water in the country comes from the sea. The system works efficiently, and Kuwaiti citizens have reliable access to clean water daily. But the process requires enormous energy, which raises long-term questions about sustainability, especially as climate pressures grow. Bahrain, the island that lost its springs. Bahrain is a small island nation in the Persian Gulf with no rivers and no natural lakes. For centuries, it was actually famous for something unusual: natural freshwater springs that bubbled up from the ground and even from the seabed beneath the Gulf. These springs made Bahrain an important stop for traders crossing the region. As the population grew and demand increased, the springs were overpumped and most of them have now dried up completely. Today, Bahrain relies on desalination and treated wastewater recycling. It is a cautionary story about how even a rare natural water source can disappear quickly when it is not protected. Qatar, Gas giant, water desert. Qatar is a small peninsula covered mostly in flat desert. It has no permanent rivers and no natural lakes, and rainfall is extremely low, sometimes under 80 millimeters a year on average. What Qatar does have is an enormous amount of natural gas, and it uses that energy to power some of the most advanced desalination facilities in the world. The country stores water in large reserves as a safety buffer. Qatar also recycles treated wastewater for irrigation and industrial use. The challenge is that this whole system depends entirely on continuous energy production. Qatar's water future is tied directly to its energy sector, which creates a dependency that planners have to manage carefully. UAE, building a city with no river. The United Arab Emirates is one of the most dramatic examples on this list. A country of gleaming skyscrapers, indoor ski slopes, and artificial islands, built entirely in a desert with no rivers and no lakes. Rainfall is scarce and unreliable, and the land is mostly sand and rock. The UAE gets nearly all its fresh water from desalination plants along the coastline. It has also invested heavily in underground water storage and runs one of the most ambitious cloud seeding programs in the world, using aircraft to trigger rainfall from passing clouds. The program has shown genuine results, adding measurable rainfall to an otherwise rainless sky. The UAE shows what is possible when technology and determination combine, but it also shows how fragile a city becomes when its entire water supply depends on machines running perfectly every single day. The Maldives, surrounded by ocean, thirsty anyway. The Maldives is a beautiful island nation in the Indian Ocean, known for its clear blue water and white sand beaches. But despite being surrounded by ocean, it has no rivers and no freshwater lakes. The islands are tiny and flat, so rainwater drains off quickly without collecting into streams or pools. Historically, people relied on shallow freshwater lenses, thin layers of fresh water sitting just above the salt water beneath the sand. These lenses are delicate. Even a small drop in the water table can allow salt water to mix in. Today, the Maldives uses rainwater harvesting, desalination, and bottled water to meet its needs. Rising sea levels from climate change threaten to contaminate those underground freshwater lenses permanently, making the water situation here one of the most urgent in the world. Why do these countries have no rivers or lakes? The pattern across all these places is clear. Most are in extremely dry desert regions where rainfall is too low and too rare to form permanent water bodies. When it does rain, the water evaporates, soaks into the ground, or runs off without accumulating. For island nations like the Maldives and Bahrain, the issue is different. The land is simply too small and too flat. Without high ground, there is nowhere for water to gather and flow. No mountains means no snowmelt, no natural springs, no rivers. Geography is the main factor in every case, but human choices about how to manage what little water exists have made all the difference between crisis and stability. These countries prove that even without natural water sources, survival is still possible through innovation, planning, and adaptation. From ancient systems to modern technology, each one has found its own way to overcome one of nature's toughest challenges. Which of these countries surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more fascinating facts from around the world.